Hey everyone, and welcome to the Uncorked Corner podcast, where we cover the full spread of food and beverage industry topics. My name is Bianca, PR and marketing professional by day, and food and wine connoisseur by night.
And my name is Nick, an accountant with a passion for barbecue, beer, and whiskey. Today we welcome Ryan Lavery, founder, owner, and director of brewing operations at Widowmaker Brewing in Braintree, Massachusetts.
In this episode, Ryan explains the vision behind Widowmaker, tells us about his personal journey in the music industry, and explains their partnerships with other brewers and how supporting one another is so impactful.
If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to us. With that said, let's welcome Ryan to the show.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today we have Ryan Lavery from Widowmaker Brewing. Let's start by having you introduce yourself and giving us a bit of information on your background and introduction to the beer space.
Sure, yeah, I'm Ryan. I'm one of the three owners of Widowmaker Brewing. We're based in Braintree, Massachusetts. We opened in 2017. So Widowmaker started in my basement in I don't know, around like 2014 or so is when I kind of put a name on it. And for a few years, we looked for a space. And when we did, I was one of the brewers. Actually had a brewer that was working along with me for the first few months when we opened. And since then, I was the head brewer here at Widowmaker. Right now, I'm no longer the head brewer. I guess I don't even know if I have a real title anymore, but I think on my business cards it says founder or brewery operations manager or something. But I oversee all the brewing here at Widowmaker. I guess is the easiest way to describe it.
Awesome. So how did you and the other co-founders there hook up and decide to start the brewery together?
Yeah, so Colin, one of my partners and founder with me, him and I had been home brewing for years together. Him and I started doing different like tastings and block parties around the South Shore. And really it's just for fun to start, and Widowmaker was just kind of the name we put on it, so it had a name. And as we progressed and got a little more intense with our home brewing, we decided let's try to figure out a way to do this. We tried to open a brewery in Quincy. We were looking around for a spot, looking for funding, and that's when we met our third partner. And he didn't come from the brewing industry, but he came from production industry. And it's been a really good relationship the three of us have to get together. We're all here every day, all day together, so we better get along. But yeah, so we looked around for spots in Quincy, like I said, for a handful of maybe like 6 or 7 months before finding this spot in Braintree.
And with the name and the logo, what's the story behind those?
Yeah, so Widowmaker was just, so I played music, traveled playing music most of my 20s, touring and stuff like that. And it was always on my list of whether it could be a song, an album, a band name at some point. But it felt right for the brewery. It was I spent a lot of time in my basement, home brewing, kind of honing our original recipes. And Widowmaker, the time I spent away from my wife, then I had some kids. My partners have wives and children as well. So really just fit the feel of what we were doing. I really like kind of like doomy metal music, and so it's kind of a little bit of a dark image. It's a woman kind of, the logo is a woman kind of looking whether tired or alone, I don't know what you want to call it, but that was kind of the image we wanted to have. So at the time our wives are in their early 30s, so we didn't want like some old haggard widow type of woman. We wanted a young looking woman, and my friend Sarah created it, and I don't know. To me, I love the logo. It's easy to remember. It's when you see it, it's us, and I think that's important with the logo.
Yeah, and I think it's really unique and kind of carves its own path compared to a lot of the other brewery logos and everything that I've seen that are pretty simple and basic and, incorporate hops and stuff. But this one really kind of stands alone. When you were in bands, do you have a specific instrument you played?
Yeah, I was a drummer.
Drummer.
Yeah.
Nice. And what was the very first beer you guys started with in production?
The very first beer we did was called Green Bush. It was a pale ale. But when we opened, we still had beers, or we had beers that we still have, like that were in pretty heavy rotation, like Ecstasy of Gold, our Donut Shop Coffee Stout, Green Bush, like I mentioned, and then so those were some of the core beers that we opened with that were beers that I had been brewing for a long time in my basement that transitioned. Ecstasy of Gold is definitely the beer that we've continued making more of since the opening day, since the early days when we opened. That's been pretty consistent in our rotation.
Awesome. And you guys have certainly grown a lot since your beginnings. Not too long ago, we hear that you've gone from just 35 barrels of fermentation space to almost 300 by the end of 2020. So can you tell us more about if you have any new styles of beer that you're planning on making in that space, or is that just to increase your overall volume?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess the answer would be both. For sure, like beers like Blue Comet, Ecstasy of Gold, which I already mentioned. Some of the hoppier beers that definitely move faster than other styles. Those will be the ones so right now we currently have 5 30-barrel fermenters and 7 15s, but I got 4 more tanks on their way, 30-barrel tanks. So that we've definitely increased a lot and more than I could ever imagine when we decided to open. But hopefully with the addition of the few tanks that we have coming, that'll definitely allow us to do more beers, farmhouse style, Pilsner. We still, we do a lot of Pilsners, but even increase that a little bit more by having those 30s that we can fill with the core brands and really keep those 15 barrels with kind of exploring new styles and just, or going deeper into styles we already brew in.
And when it comes to consuming on site, so I know right now everything's kind of messed up. There's not a whole lot of indoor stuff going on, but I think you guys have a couple outdoor locations that people can get stuff at. Want to tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, so just last weekend we opened a patio here at our brewery, at 220 Wood Road in Braintree. An outdoor space, about 60 to 70 people can be there. Right now we're not open inside. We're still doing some revamping inside. So we haven't opened indoors yet, but we hopefully by our anniversary, which is in mid-September, we'll have the indoors open, which will include 3 new garage doors, which allows us to kind of have, we were planning on doing pre-COVID, but I think now it's good that we're having it. So we've kind of held off opening inside till we have the ability to open up some more, I guess, fresh air and, make people feel safer in here and more have the seating closer to the outdoor big, like it's going to be 3 garage doors we're putting in our tap room that we didn't have previously. So hopefully that'll be, like I said, hopefully that'll be open in mid-September along with our patio here at the beer garden. Those are open Saturday and Sunday. And then we have our beer garden down at on the waterfront in Quincy. And that's Wednesday through Saturday, as long as we can do it. It gets pretty cold down there starting like mid-October. So it'll hopefully last till about mid-October. And we have guest taps all the time down there. This weekend we have our buddies from Channel Marker up in Beverly. We've had Vitamin C, Second Wind, Untold. Next week we'll have Trillium down there. So a lot of great beer that's being made in the South Shore and South Coast of Massachusetts, and we always bring in friends from different areas of the country too. So,
being a former, or you might still currently play, Being involved in like the music industry, do you do a lot when you are open with music, or any of your beers inspired by that background?
Yeah, we don't do any live music at the brewery. One, we're not permitted to do it, and two, it's just such a big space where live music. I've actually played music in here with friends and different bands I'm in. Um, it's super loud, and it's not really conducive to taproom vibes. Um, yeah, I mean, music's a huge thing for us. So like, we've done collaboration beers with we did a beer with Earth last year, which is if you have any knowledge of old drone stoner, I guess they're not stoner rock, but like old drone rock, like they've been around forever, and it was one of my favorite bands growing up, and to do a beer with them, that was awesome. We just did a beer inspired by Sleep, which is a doom metal band. We have a beer we're going to be doing with a band called Elder later in the year. So we definitely try to stay true to like what we enjoy, and we like loud, heavy music, so we always try to go towards that. So we definitely try to have that vibe when the tap room's open. There's plenty of places you can hear pop music and whatever's popular, but here we like to play loud music, and it seems to work even with like uh the crowd here in Braintree might not be up for listening to Sleep all day, but it doesn't really seem to turn people off too much. So
That's cool, and it gives you your own kind of
we,
unique
we, we
vibe.
yeah, we're here to be ourselves and nothing but ourselves. So if you enjoy it, that's awesome. If you don't, I guess there's plenty other places you can go.
When it comes to beer, for your own personal preference, what's your go-to style? Now, obviously, it's hard to decide when you make them all, and I'm sure you make a lot of great ones. But if you had to choose one style that you had to drink every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Yeah, so I always try to keep at least two Pilsners going in the tanks. I think there's a lot to be said about a brewer and technique, and there's not a lot of masking, and you can't really hide a lot of mistakes when brewing Pilsners. And so whether it be, the merit of a brewer or just what I like drinking, I like drinking crisper, softer beer or lower ABV beers, but totally understand that big, high ABV IPAs, stouts keep the lights on for us for sure. And I love those styles of beer, and I love making them as well. But I guess if I went away on vacation last week, and I brought a case of our Pilsner that I stored from a packaging run 2 months ago, because I knew I was going away, and that's what I wanted to have, and that's what I drank all week. So like our Widow Lager, our Kamiosa, which is a nice Japanese rice lager that we make with sake yeast. Those are really cool beers for me. Those are what I want to make. Um, might not be the highest rated beers on Beer Advocate and Untappd, but like I said, we can only be ourselves, and I feel like a full portfolio is really important. And like I said, like there's not a lot of hiding behind mistakes there, so your beers better be pretty spot on when you're making those styles.
And I tend to gravitate towards those styles as well. I like the easier drinking, like real malty, real tasty, not crazy hoppy beers. So
Yeah,
that's definitely.
I love hoppy beer. I love hops. All I do all day is make beer. We do sensory tastings here daily, and so hop profiles and understanding that we also have to understand what the market calls for, and we know that IPAs are our bread and butter, and so we better make really great ones, because there's a lot of great breweries around here making great IPAs. And so um, just like anything, it's variety is the spice of life. But I love that Widowmaker is willing to have different beers that we just know we're willing to make, and let sit in tanks a little bit longer, even though that means maybe we turn tanks around less fast. Those beers take time, and for me, it's worth it, whether it be a selfish reason or just to grow our portfolio.
And speaking of the heavier beers, I noticed that you had your first triple IPA with Untold Brewing. Big if true. Can design's awesome, and it's definitely recognizable, I think, for anybody in the Boston area. Like me and Nick are both originally from here. Can you tell us more about what differentiates like a triple IPA from, a double IPA or an IPA for those of our listeners who wouldn't know?
Yeah, so we actually brew a lot of triple IPAs. Untold hadn't brewed a triple IPA, and a lot of the times when we get asked to do collab beers, in pre-COVID in February or late January, I was down in North Carolina and brewing some beer with our friends at Divine Barrel, and they really liked our 100-Year Storm triple IPA, and we're like, well, if you're gonna come down, let's do it big. And then when I went to Untold, like, let's do it big. We like if we're gonna play big, we like to really push our equipment, push malt in our grist bills and our hop profiles as much as we can. I guess in theory, there's no such thing as a triple IPA, all imperial. If it's an imperial IPA, but we kind of gauge that at, like, if we're doing an IPA above 10%, we're labeling it as a triple IPA. I think that's fair for consumers to understand. If it's that high, you're giving it a different class than just your standard double IPAs. But really, it gives you no boundaries. And we brew tons of IPAs, and to go big and play with flavor profiles even more has been something we've really enjoyed here. So we have a couple of them, and they've done really well for us, and we love making them.
And so what's the differentiator when brewing between making a standard IPA and double or triple IPA, for example, when you're going to have that higher ABV? So how do you actually go about in the brewing process making that happen?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with some of the beers we've done, so we have a triple ecstasy, which is a triple version of our ecstasy of gold. We have a twin comet, which is a double version, but it's 8.8, so it's pretty high on our blue comet. So two of our core beers. To me, those are kind of like gateway beers for triple IPAs. Like, okay, these beers that we put out a lot in ecstasy and blue. Now here's us amping it up. So going to 11, to quote Spinal Tap. Like, we're going as much as we can. We're really hitting the capacity of our brew house. The dosing rates on our IPAs, we're kind of getting to that point where, like, it's almost, we're borderline too much hops on those beers, but we do them so randomly and infrequently that, like, it's supposed to be special when we do it, so we try not to overdo it. But as far as designing the beers, it's pushing our equipment and pushing kind of like our imaginations to the limit. And what's the biggest beer we can do and still be true to the style and make sure it ferments out and it's balanced. We're not doing it just to do it. We want to make the best beer we can at that size, as we do the same approach as we do any ABV on the lower side.
Sweet. And I love, obviously, your cans. I came in and got to see you putting them all together. But the one that I saw on your social was the ice cream stout, which I thought was pretty cool, called the Braintree Split. Yeah. How did this, is this a collaboration? Is that right? And how'd that come about?
Yeah, so this is like one of the few beers where the name came before the beer. Braintree Split is, anybody from the South Shore knows, when they're listening to their traffic report on the ones on, like, WBZ, they know that Braintree Split's one of those locations where the news is always saying, well, it's getting backed up here. So it's a pretty iconic or easy reference for people in our area, the Braintree Split. And when I thought of it, it was just instantaneously, well, let's do something with an ice cream shop in Braintree. You know, I thought it came out great. To me, like the idea of the beer was like, what does a melted banana split sundae taste like? So we literally, you know, we just let we got sundaes from a few different places, let them melt, and kind of did sensory tests on those, and then put the beer together. You know, I think beers like that are strange for people because there's so much flavor in there. There's different aspects of it that like people love different, but they also, I find they don't really love confusing. And this, to me, this beer can definitely be confusing. There's the sweetness of the cherry, almost like the acidic taste of a banana. You know, the way a banana can make you have like that, like kind of like a acidic feel in your chest. It's all there for me. I think we nailed it. Yeah, I'm just really happy with it. But like, yeah, that branding's fun, and we did it with a local ice cream place, local ice cream shop in Braintree, and we always like to have fun and support other people who support us.
And speaking of those on the dessert beers, one that we have here, and I have the Blue Comet right now. That's what I'm sipping on. But one that I saw is There's No Wrong Way, the peanut butter stout.
Yeah.
That one's interesting. You want to tell us about that one and where you kind of got the inspiration behind using that sort of the Reese style?
Yeah. Well, I actually just got a cease and desist, so I don't know. So that
I had
beer
no
is,
idea.
yeah, no, nobody does. We actually got it the other day. So that beer's been around for us. It's a core beer for us. It's a really important beer for us. It's done really well for us. So we're working through rebranding it and figuring out a way to do it. But yeah, There's No Wrong Way is a thing of the past for us. But as far as the beer goes, it's 7%. It's not super heavy. It's to me, it's like the perfect balance. Like, again, like I keep saying balance. Like that's a huge thing for us. No matter what the ABV is, we want, you know, a beer aficionado, somebody who really loves beer and is into different flavors to enjoy it. But we also want somebody who might just be interested because of the marketing or the label and the idea of the beer to also enjoy it. So There's No Wrong Way is, you know, the nose is just instant. To me, it's instantaneous. Reese cup vibe, and you know, if you ever had it, like it just screams out of the cup at you, peanut butter. But the taste, you know, it's got a nice solid malt backbone, cacao nibs that really tie it together and give it that chocolate big flavor. It's just, it's a beer we've done for a few years. It won silver medal last year at the U.S. Open for chocolate beers. So it's a beer we're really proud of.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I tend to like peanut butter stouts. One of the ones that we have locally up here, I don't know if you're familiar with Masked Landing at all. They do the Gunner's Daughter.
Yeah,
That's delicious. They're right down the street from me. So I am definitely familiar with the style. And so I'm sure you'll rebrand that and get it going. I bet it's going to be a delicious beer.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to try it.
we've actually had a backup brand idea for it because we were kind of we've had that beer for like 2.5 years and we've been waiting for the cease and desist, and it finally came on Monday.
Well, there you go. But hey, it happens, right? So on to one of the other beers. So the one that I'm drinking now is the Blue Comet. It's a New England IPA. It's a really mellow drinking one. Really, the first thing that hit me was when it was foaming up at the top. It's really citrusy at first, and then it's just a really smooth drinking IPA after that. So what's sort of the inspiration behind this one, and I guess what went into making it?
Yeah, so Blue Comet to me is like the quintessential New England IPA. Like it's got those big, juicy citra front notes up front. It's soft. It's pillowy. Um, it's right in that wheelhouse of, you know, 7.1%. It's our core IPA. You know, I think we've kind of fought having a core IPA for the first 3 years of existence, but like we can't make enough beer of that. Make enough of that beer. Right now at all times we have 3 30-barrel tanks of it going at a time. It's it is Widowmaker. Like it's our most important beer. And I think a lot of people, it's the first Widowmaker beer they have. So I think it's a great introduction for what we do on the IPA side, on the hop side. Um, it's a great play of Comet and Simcoe hops. There's a bit of dankness that hits you in the back on the back end. That I think is really complemented by those citrusy notes on the nose and in the flavor.
And I have the spiked punch, or spike the punch, which I can obviously see the design idea behind. But
that's who I thought the cease and desist was from.
Yeah, it's very recognizable, but it's really good. It's a very nice, refreshing. I love anything with sour kind of tart flavor.
Yeah.
So this is definitely probably going to be a favorite of mine. Anything with that kind of puckery flavors.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a beer we've I think you got the second, that's the second version. We've done it twice. It's fun beer. It's again, it goes back to Chris and I, the other brewery here at Widowmaker, just playing with flavor profiles, and it was a fun beer to put together, and people have really enjoyed it. So we've been happy with it so far.
And the last beer that you lent us over here is the Hop Smoker. So let's talk about that one a bit. That one definitely seems like a different style.
Yeah, so it's a double IPA that we use with terpenes. And we branded it as a stoner-inspired Imperial India Pale Ale. And again, like I mentioned earlier about music, so we're paying homage to Dope Smoker, which is a stoner rock classic by the band Sleep. And really, we wanted to, we're not making any bones about it. We've released it once, we released rolling papers with it. We're not. It was, being stoned and thinking about how cool that album is, and putting together a beer and using the terpenes to really make that dankness come through. But also hitting the notes of what we love about our New England IPAs, the softness, the pillowiness of it. We love a touch of bitterness in it, and I think it's one of our best examples of a New England IPA. But it also is a different play. There's so many New England IPAs being made, and we're always trying to figure out, okay, we know what people want, how do we do a different version of it? And this was one of the ones we came up with, and we're super psyched on it.
And I love that you guys keep it unique and you're really creative behind the beers, and you're always doing something different instead of kind of just putting out the same stuff. So where
we always try to, whether people care or not, we try to give it a narrative and a reason for doing it. It's not, and we have tanks to fill, so we always have to keep beer in the tanks. But if we're gonna put out a new beer, let's give it a purpose and a focus, and we just always try to have some sort of end goal and some element of that style that we're trying to represent with that beer. It's not just a different label.
And I know you got your tap room there in Braintree. Outside of that, where can people in the area find your beers?
Yeah, so we're distributed locally we're self-distributed on the South Shore by ourselves, but we're distributed statewide through Massachusetts by Night Shift Distributing. So if there's a place where you can get Night Shift cans, or like you mentioned, Mass Landing, they're distributed by Night Shift Distributing as well. So if there's a place in Massachusetts where you're picking up Night Shift or Mass Landing, there's a pretty good chance you can find Widowmaker there as well. What you're going to probably see more often is the Blue Comet, Ecstasy of Gold, and occasionally, some random one-offs or that we'll send them just to pepper in throughout the state, but to a lesser extent, obviously, than the core beers. If you're in New York City, we're in New York City. We send beer down there once a month. Just a good way to promote our beer, build our brand. But if you're in different states, keep an eye out. Sometimes we just do, today I just sent a pallet of beer down to Miami, because why not?
ever get anything up here to Maine where I am at?
Yeah, we're actually so we have a relationship with Vacation Land, which is a distributor out there. And from time to time, you might see small little case drops. I think in 2 weeks we have some Blue Comet heading up your way.
Nice. I'll have to keep an eye out. Awesome.
And where can everybody find you on social media so they can follow you?
At Widowmaker Brew on everything.
Cool. Well, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us tonight. We're looking forward to try some more of these beers. And cheers. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Take care. Cheers.
Be sure to follow us on social at Uncorked Corner and on the blog at uncorkedcorner.com for a taste of more food and beverage content.
And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe, rate, and review on whatever podcast platform you prefer. Thanks for listening.